Ladies and gentlepawns, the Alien Gambit is probably one of the most notoriously aggressive and successful openings that has been popularized by Witty Alien himself. And as a caro kann player, I have a feeling that it is my obligation to strike back. And I don't like the Alien Gambit. In fact, in the early parts of when the Alien Gambit was first introduced, I lost countless blitz games and like countlessly lost in positions that I should have not have lost. And so therefore I studied the Alien Gambit to a T and basically have figured out all the themes and all the possibilities to it. And I can tell you firmly, as a caro kann player, no matter how aggressive your opponent may play, I guarantee you that you will win just from these simple ideas. And so today I'm going to show you. This is a game I played against a 2036 rated player on Chess. 2000 range is pretty much the same as it is in chess.com. It hasn't changed. It only really changes in the lower parts. If you're like 1500 lead chess, you're like 1200 chess.com, like that kind of thing. And so, there's a huge, and the differences as you get higher into the rating category, it doesn't seem to change too much. Maybe if you're 2000 like lead chess, maybe you're like 1900 chess.com kind of thing. But I have to disagree because I found myself climbing and getting back to the 2100 range, and yeah, so I've had some good success. So my opponent plays e4, of course, and I play the caro kann, and we play into the Alien Gambit, which is famous for the knight sacrifice on f7, in which the king is now forced to take. And the reason why I say forced is because you just don't want your opponent being up the one pawn. So takes and bishop check. And so there are two different ideas. You can go knight here and knight here, and then later go on with bishop check. But my opponent does bishop check. I do e6, and my opponent does knight to c, or knight to f3. Now, there are two things you must know. In certain cases, the knight comes into check, in which the king goes back to g8. And this becomes very interesting for black, as they need to know how to defend like a g. And so it really comes down to the main components. You really need to get your knight onto this square, but it's right now blocked by the c pawn. And you really need to take your opportunity to protect this e6 pawn and this e6 square specifically, because basically after castles and queen and bringing the rook in, there is a lot of pressure on this pawn. And sometimes you have less defenders than they have attackers, and white will come out with a really solid position. And so I, in this position, play c5, which is the best move in order for the knight to come here. And you really have to be careful, because you're going to get hit probably with this and then go back, and white's going to start attacking you very aggressively. But if you play the c5 move, it's very pivotal, because the engine basically says if you play c5, you cover this square, and now white has no attack, and black should be fine if they defend this pawn. And so the first reason of defense for the caro kann is to protect this square and this square. These are the two most important squares. And even if the white knight gets to that square, always go back and you're still able to play this. The reason why we don't want to go knight to d7 is because the bishop blocks the pivotal defense of this pawn. And so castles, knight to c6, rook here, I take because that's pretty much a free pawn. You don't want to take back because I can just take back. And then queen here. And white is now building the pressure on this pawn. And so now I had to play a very interesting move that I thought was fine, but the computer disagrees, and I played the move queen to e7. Now, queen to e7 is not as good as I think it should have been. In fact, I think I should have played queen e8 so that I don't block the dark squared bishop, and I think I would have been fine if I had something like this. But then again, there's always like the knight coming in, and I guess for me, having a piece closer to this pawn was better, and temporary blocking in my bishop was fine. But computer actually says something like this. But for me, I really don't want takes, and then me opening up this entire file. So that didn't even come to my mind. Queen e7 is totally fine. He goes b3, now supporting this bishop, but now I have basically stopped all his pivotal attacks. So I've defended this pawn. My knight has the very important square of covering e5. And so now I play g5. And g5 is a little bit of an inaccuracy, but the idea is basically to fianchetto and fianchetto, bring out my rook, and hide my king on g7. And part of me also thinks that I could have done like g6 and not have been as like aggressive with the pawn, but I wanted the pawns to stick together and such. Now there's a very interesting idea. With going g5, you do have the slight possibility that your opponent may even get more aggressive. And that's exactly what my opponent did. He sacrificed the bishop, checked my king, and I brought my king back to the center. I don't want to go here because the queen can like go here, and now my king is stuck. Also, my bishop is, or his bishop is still attacking my weak pawn, and that king, I don't want it to be on the diagonal in the future. And yeah, there's going to be lots of things. Also, this pawn is now weak. So takes, and I am looking like I'm in danger. But here's the thing. I have the knight here, and I have the knight here. And they kind of block the two squares. And even though his rook can pin my queen in the future, basically, I have no reason to be scared about this. The only thing I really do have to be scared is this check, in which the knight can fork my king and rook. And so I go rook to c8. He checks here, and this is wrong. Because after takes and queen here, he thinks, oh, I just win your queen. You stupid. You're such a goofy goober. Not so quick, bucko, because I have knight to e5. And knight to e5 basically is defended. Okay, yes, you can take the free pawn. But after a while, and no matter how many checks you can give, I can always like use my knights to correlate with one another. My bishop defends. My rooks, okay, they're disconnected, but I can always bring my king to a safe spot, connect my rooks, and I'm completely fine. He's just a queen, 2 rooks, and I have 2 of my rooks, a knight, actually a knight pair, and a bishop. And okay, yeah, he may be up more pawns, but pieces over pawns is still good. Queen to b5 check. Knight back. Takes. Well, can't hang this, so gotta get it out of the way. But instead of me going here and losing another pawn, I decided to wait. Well, I gotta get my queen active again. And if anything of like ideas of like f4 where he pins my knight, I think queen c5, threatening a check and pushing my pawn through that is a very nice idea. In fact, I think I'll be fine to get out of danger if anything happens. So that's what I do. I go queen to c5. And queen to c5 now, after this, I have check. And that's exactly what he do. He goes back, I take, and now I'm threatening to promote with a queen. And that's exactly what I do. He takes. And this is completely lost. I mean, okay. I didn't want to hang a vital like fork in where the rook comes down and he skewers my other rook, and yeah, I'm gonna be knight and pawn for I don't know 4 pieces or whatever, 4 or 5 pieces. I didn't want to do that, so I just lifted up my king. Took here, very nice tactic. You can't take because check. I win a couple pawns, and black is just in great shape. As long as I protect this, I should be fine. I mean, I could mate with a knight and a bishop, but he goes here, I take, he takes, and then my opponent realized, yeah, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to hit with check again with this, and the game is completely over. I mean, there's nothing you can do. And yeah, my opponent resigned in humble fashion. And it's really funny because, my opponent came out with a very spiffy attack with the caro kann and the Alien Gambit. And the Alien Gambit is very good. And in fact, if your opponent is not aware, you are in trouble. But there are the two main ideas. The two main ideas are to cover for e5 and for e6. E5 with the knight going here. C5 is kind of like a voluntary sacrifice. Well, it's not a sacrifice, but it's a voluntary move to kind of open up the center and just try and get the rest of your pieces. And so, yeah, there's also the idea of, having your bishop having access to this e6 square and lots of different ideas. So, yeah. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's a quick analysis of my caro kann game. And yeah, if you do struggle with the caro kann, Alien Gambit, learn those different ideas, protect that e6 pawn. It's very important. Bring your knight into the game and make sure it's developed naturally, usually on the more forward square. Putting it on, I see a lot of games where they put their knight on d7 or whatever, and it becomes problematic because now you give the initiative for the white pieces to attack you, and lots of trouble comes. So yeah, thanks for coming, and get out of here.